What's up, people? Welcome back to another episode of the New York Sports Rapid Rundown, the best digital sports show, bringing you the hottest 3 topics in New York sports. We're now in the final weekend of February, which means this is the final episode in Black History Month. Joining me on this week's show is a host that you can hear on the airwaves for ESPN Radio 98.7 FM, Tyriq Butler. Ty, what's up, man?
It's good to be here, man. Happy Black History Month to you.
Yo, happy Black History Month to you, too. It's coming to a close here, but I'm glad to have you here, man. I've been fond of your work, watching it, seeing what you've been doing on the airwaves, killing it.
I appreciate you having me, man. It's fun times, obviously, in the sports world, and anytime I get a chance to hop on the sports desk and chop it up with my boy, I'm excited to do it.
It's good, and you got to let the people know. It's always good on this desk when we have a fellow Brooklynite here representing Bushwick right there. So it's always good when we have that. Tyriq, I got to tell you this, because sports news is starting to heat up again, because now we're past the NBA All-Star break. We're approaching the NHL trade deadline, along with March Madness coming right around the corner. But this week, we have a bunch to talk about. We got to talk about whether or not Julius Randle will return to the Knickerbockers. The Nets, they fired Jacque Vaughn. But first, we got to talk about the New York Mets. Tyriq, on Thursday, news came down that the projected #1 starter for the Mets, Kodai Senga, will likely start the season on the injured list. You know, this is disappointing to Mets fans, and according to team president of baseball operations, David Stearns, he said that the ace had a moderate strain in his right shoulder. Tyriq, this is not the start that Mets fans wanted to spring training, especially with it being unclear how much time that Senga would actually miss. On a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned should Mets fans be with this injury news? Is this a major concern for Mets fans?
You should be at a 10, because first of all, if you're a Met fan, you're all too familiar with this feeling. The fact that you start a season with a guy who's projected to be your #1 pitcher already on the IL. It happened last year with Verlander. We saw Scherzer experience some issues. You go back to that trio that was so overhyped with Harvey, Syndergaard, and DeGrom. What defines them? It's a big what if, because they couldn't stay healthy. So now you're dealing with the same thing again. And another reason why this is so important for the Mets, you take a look at Vegas, their over-unders at about 81.5, which means they'll be right there in contention for a playoff spot. But that's predicated on so many things going right. It's, you know, back of the baseball card. We love that phrase. So it's Pete Alonso continuing to be awesome. It's Lindor having, you know, a great season. It's McNeil. Him having a bounce-back year. So it's a bunch of guys you can go through that lineup. You're counting on them to either be as good as they were last year or to over-exceed. And it starts with your rotation. Kodai Senga. So this is a significant injury, and if I'm a Met fan, it's just all once again all too familiar. The ghost of seasons past are resurfacing.
So if you're a Mets fan, you should be on 10 right now, because
Absolutely.
This should be an absolute concern. And I've seen this from some Mets fans, especially on social media. They've got the vibes of, okay, here we go again. To your point, we've seen this before. Now, with this happening, and obviously you don't know how long Senga's going to be out, right? Obviously, this is going to test the Mets' rotation depth. Are you comfortable with the potential replacements that the team has for Senga in the rotation, or do you think the Mets need to go out and acquire a quality starter before the start of the 2024 season?
Well, I think this depends on what the expectation and what the goal is for this team. Now, if Stearns and Cohen have aspirations of actually being a contender this year, then yes, you should absolutely go out there and get a starter, because how on earth do you feel comfortable in Luis Severino and Jose Quintana, who, yes, when they're healthy, can be really good. And Severino was back, you know, in 2017 for the Yankees, a Cy Young candidate. But the fact that we got to go back 7 years to find the last time he was consistently good is an issue. So you just look up and down that rotation, it's littered with question marks. So if the Mets are, again, a team that we obviously don't think they're going to win this division, but if you can sneak in and get into the playoffs, you know, Arizona last year going on a run, 2 years ago, the Phillies going on a run. So there's certainly an opportunity for you to, you know, be about an average team, but still get in and make some noise. And if that's what you have, you know, to be optimistic about, if you're Cohen and Stearns, I think it necessitates you having to go out there and get some depth in that starting rotation.
Yeah, because right now I think there's fair questions from the Mets fans as to whether they can trust what they have, especially to replace Kodai Senga. Right now, they said that they're going to stay put. We'll see if that's the right move. You're shaking your head as if that's not the right move. That ain't it.
That ain't it, Chief. I don't love it.
That's not it.
I don't love it.
He doesn't love it. We will see. Ty says Mets fans should be on 10 I don't know what's going to bring them down to 9, 8, 7, 6. Not sure how that's going to happen, but we'll see. Season's right around the corner. We shall see. Going to talk some basketball. New York Knicks, they return to play this week following the All-Star break, and forward Julius Randle, who's recovering from a shoulder separation, said that he is not ruling out season-ending shoulder surgery. So, Ty, should Randle try to come back and play again this season, which he said that he wants to do, just to be clear, or should he do what's best for his shoulder and his health in the long term?
So I think, and you know, it's kind of skirting around answering the question, but I think the best case scenario is those two things happening simultaneously, where he can learn that, yes, I can come back and there's nothing that can happen that is going to significantly damage me going forward. Like, in other words, even if I do get hurt again, I can have the surgery, and it's not going to put next season or my career in jeopardy. Because, you know, Randle obviously is, in my opinion, the second most important player on this team outside of Jalen Brunson. He's, you know, a 3-time All-NBA guy. He's a 2-time All-Star. For this season, he's giving you 24 and 9. Right. How many guys in the NBA are giving you 24 points and 9 rebounds? 4 of those guys. It's Giannis, it's Jokic, it's Anthony Davis, and it's Julius Randle. So you don't just remove that production from your lineup and not miss it and not feel it. So I think that it's imperative of him, and he says he's going to try to come back. But if he can get back to this team, then maybe the ceiling is higher than we expected coming into the season. And I want to see him, I want to see him do it because I've been a big Julius Randle defender. And I understand that the Knicks fans are on him because of his shortcomings in the postseason. With, you know, the responsibility comes all the expectations, and we judge disproportionately how you perform in the postseason to what you do in the regular season. So I want to see him get an opportunity to atone for that, because that'll be an excellent redemption story for him.
Especially to that point, because he had been playing so good this season, right? So efficient, probably playing some of the best basketball of his career. I guess my concern, Ty, is if he returns, because of the way he plays, right? He's such a physical guy, such a physical player, and sometimes he lowers his shoulder at people. This is what he uses, not all the time, but you guys get what I'm saying. I just wonder, is he still going to have that confidence? You're somebody who hooped as well, too. You know, if you don't have that confidence there, that can affect how you play.
Yeah.
And then if he struggles again after that, what's the conversation?
On top of that, and see, that's why I hate this injury so much, because like we will all agree, the reason why he struggles in the playoffs, that's not talent. We know he has the talent.
Right.
Some of it is mental. Like the best players overcome that mental hurdle needed to get them past the best, you know, defenses in the play. And you could do it for any sport. Like there's a psychological edge that, you know, Mahomes and Brady and LeBron, like these guys have over the lesser players. And I think Julius Randle, not that he's those guys, but I'm saying him as a star in his own right on his team has struggled with overcoming that. So to your point, having to deal with the psychological aspect on top of the physical,
right?
Like that's working in concert, it's going to be tough for him to overcome.
Yeah, and we saw last year, to even be fair to Randle, in the playoffs last year, he also was not 100%. Yeah. He was dealing with the ankle and trying to fight through that. So
Knicks fans don't want to hear that, though, man.
They're not trying to hear anything.
Especially at the Hawks series and now that series last year against the Cavs and then against Miami. They don't want to hear these excuses.
Nah, you're right about that. The vibes from them are, you got to get this done, and we understand that. So we understand the Knicks are still playing without Randle, OG Anunoby, Mitchell Robinson. But on Thursday, their first game back from the break, they dumped the Sixers in Philly 110-96. Now, we saw back on the court, Isaiah Hartenstein was back out there, Dante DiVincenzo, Bojan Bogdanovic, they all returned to the lineup in that game. Well, what you saw in that game with 5 Knicks reaching double-digit scoring, are you confident that the Knicks can grab a top 4 seed in the East and hold it down until Randle, Anunoby, and Robinson return? What you saw in that game, did that give you confidence going forward?
Yes, I think it's more likely than not that that's going to happen. Like if we could set like a betting odds for Vegas, I would say that they maintain their standing in the top 4, just because I don't think Philly, devoid of Joel Embiid in that lineup, has enough to hang with the Knicks in the standings. And they'll actually play the Knicks twice in 3 days later in March. And so that'll be an opportunity for the Knicks to hold them off. But you know, obviously the Celtics are the best team in the East. The Cavs have dropped a couple games, but they're second. And then you've got Milwaukee and the Knicks fighting for 3 and 4. I think those would be the 2 teams, in that 3-4 matchup that'll be able to overcome Philadelphia. So I'm confident that the Knicks will be able to stay up there.
All right, confident the Knicks can stay up there, keep the top 4 seed. I think obviously if they can get top 2 or 3, that allows them to avoid Boston until the conference finals.
But how about this, man?
Yeah, go.
You look at what 4-5 could potentially be. Bucks, Knicks, first round. See, that to me is a nightmare. Because as much as people are down on Milwaukee, you cannot possibly tell me that if you're a Knicks fan, you feel great about as you're welcoming guys back from injury, trying to get that synergy and camaraderie back together, you feel great about opening round, Giannis and Dame. Giannis, who's already won a championship there, who still might be the best player in the NBA, Dame, who might be the most clutch player in the NBA. You don't feel great about that potential.
Not to mention the Bucks have not been a good matchup for the Knicks at all the last couple of years, and even particularly this year, they just haven't. It's been a rough nightmare matchup for them. So that's not the matchup they would want in the first round. I think you'd rather see the Cavaliers maybe again in the first round if possible.
Which is why it's incumbent upon the Knicks to keep winning these games without those guys to avoid possibly falling into a 4-5 with the Bucks.
Yeah, so we'll see if the Knicks are able to keep doing that as they try to get healthier. We shall see. Keeping it with basketball, we are going to talk about the Brooklyn Nets, who also made news. They relieved former head coach now, Jacque Vaughn, of his head coaching duties on Monday, and they named Kevin Ollie the interim head coach. Now, general manager Sean Marks, he's fired 3 coaches in 8 seasons. This is the main question for me here, Ty, when we're talking about this. This is the money question, folks. Should Sean Marks get the opportunity to hire a 4th head coach?
The answer is no, unequivocally. It's unprecedented. When do you ever see at any company, at any industry, that a decision maker is allowed to fire 3 guys of the, I guess you could say, the most important position, of the staff, and then get a chance to hire a 4th? That doesn't make any sense. What I will say, though, is part of it is unfair, because I'm sure if you inject him with truth serum, he didn't want to can Kenny Atkinson. Kenny Atkinson was a really good head coach. But because of the egos on that team with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, reports are that they had something to do with it. He had to let go of Kenny Atkinson, who's now in Golden State, having some success as an assistant. Then you bring in Steve Nash, who had no experience and clearly was overwhelmed. And then what also happens is the James Harden trade falls apart because he comes here, he's unhappy, then Kyrie's unhappy, that contract situation, so you trade Harden, you trade Kyrie, you trade Kevin Durant. So some of it is not on Sean Marks, but as we know, not everything is rooted in what's fair versus what's unfair.
Right.
The fact that you've had 3 head coaches, they've all failed, and you get an opportunity to hire a 4th one, I just don't see it, especially when, as an executive, he's 290 and 347 with 1 playoff series win.
Never made a conference final.
Never made a conference finals. I mean, he was Katie's shoe size, half size away from getting there. But to your point, yeah, he's won 1 playoff series since he's been here. With that resume, that doesn't usually net you getting a chance to hire a 4th head coach.
He said earlier this week that he expects Joe Tsai to give him that opportunity. I'm with you on this. We haven't seen this before.
Yeah, he must have some, I don't know, man. He must got somebody's pictures or something.
He got some information on somebody. I'm not so sure about this. So let me ask you this, Ty, because whether it's Marks doing the hiring for the next head coach in Brooklyn or it's going to be another GM, who do you think should be the next full-time head coach of the Brooklyn Nets? Should it be Kevin Ollie? Should it be somebody else? Is there a specific kind of coach you think that needs to come into Brooklyn to fix the situation?
It's funny because people have been floating this question around, and I keep coming back to one name.
Okay.
And it's so ironic. It's never going to happen, but the perfect person for this job would be Kenny Atkinson.
Oh, I thought you were going to go there, I like it.
It would be Kenny Atkinson, who has proven that in the midst of, draft turmoil because all their picks are gone. I know they have the Suns' picks, but they don't have their own picks. In the midst of being in salary cap hell, they've got that onerous Ben Simmons contract. In the midst of a rebuild situation, we've seen Kenny Atkinson prove he can get the team to at least be a playoff contender and be exciting. And that's what, ironically enough, that type of culture he built was what wowed the likes of Durant and Irving to want to come play here. and choosing them over the Knicks. So Kenny Atkinson, I mean, it's never going to happen, but that to me would be the perfect hire. But you look at who's on the market. The most accomplished is Mike Budenholzer, and he was the guy who actually was opposing Nash in that series that they lost in 2021. But Mike Budenholzer as the most accomplished on the market. Mike D'Antoni to some degree. But I think Budenholzer actually would be an interesting name to come in because he can coach. He's a champion. Something went wrong there late in his tenure with the Bucks, and he also was dealing with some heartbreak in his family. But I think he would be a nice hire for the Nets.
Let me throw a name at you, Brooklynite, Mark Jackson.
I love it, but I keep wondering why when all these openings happen, he's not getting the job.
He's not getting the job there.
He could have because remember his name was floated around once Atkinson was fired.
Yeah, it was. He was supposedly on that high list of candidates for that. So I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there because Brooklyn, we had to do that. Look, what the Nets do over the next couple of months as we get to the season, it's going to be interesting because they really have to map out what is their direction, what is their path going forward. Right now, it just seems very unclear.
It's unclear, and it's also embarrassing. If you ever look at promos for games, they are promoting teams opposing play, and you're a Knicks fan, so you've been accustomed to this, where it's like, come watch LeBron, come watch Steph, come watch KD.
Right.
Now the Knicks are in a place where they have their own star with Brunson. But if you're going to the Barclays Center, it's no, with all due respect to Mikal Bridges, who I love as a basketball player, but he's not box office. You're not showing up to watch him. So you have to find a way, as you're in pursuit of whoever that next star is, to just get this team to be exciting, get them to be interesting like they were in 2019 before you got KD. And, that has to be the direction that you go in if you are Sean Marks and that Nets brass.
Yeah, you would think so. You got to get it exciting, got to get the building buzzing there again at the Barclays Center. Right now, it is not. Okay, over the years, I want to talk to you about this because it's Black History Month.
Yes,
Glad
sir.
to have you up here, my brother, to talk about this. And I've been having all the guests talk about different things around Black history. And you know that over the years, Sports Talk Radio has not had always a lot of hosts that look like us. Just hasn't. So I got to ask you this. What does it mean for you to be in the position that you're in as a Black sports talk host on the radio? And do you believe that with hosts like yourself, we got Freddie Coleman, JR Sports Brief, and others that are opening doors for people, do you think there'll be more Black voices in sports talk radio?
Well, I'll tell you this, man. I take a lot of pride and joy when I get either text messages or people to hit me up on social and they say things like, or even they call up the show and say, yo, it's good to hear someone who sounds or see someone who looks just like me, because there's a relatability factor to it. Like the beauty of local sports talk is that there's an intimacy with your audience. And how do you get that type of relationship? It's through fandom, like sports teams and relationships and things of that nature. But it's also through cultural references, right? Like when I can reference, Next Friday, the movie, or New Jack City, like those types of things resonate with your audience when they feel like they can relate to you. So I take a lot of pride in that. And, as far as like how it feels to be doing this, it's incredible. It's awesome. And, it's not that like before people who look like us, and we can bring women into the equation too. It's not like we weren't working hard enough. It's just that for whatever reason, there was not a concerted effort to give us that equal opportunity to showcase our talent, to broadcast to the masses, and to show that we do belong. So to be here at this desk with you is an awesome feat. It's incredible. And yes, is it going to break the doors down and open up opportunities for this to happen more? Of course. But, I mean, even in talking about this, you get frustrated and disappointed because this should have been happening for a very long time.
You know what? That's a great point. I think and I've talked to this before, and I've talked with even my producer Lee about this all the time, when we talk about people who are breaking barriers in sports, in sports broadcasting, whatever it may be, and a lot of times we like to laud and put people on pedestals and be like, this person's the first person to do this. And I always say, the question we got to ask ourselves is, why did it take so long?
Yep.
Right? And I understand that's a very uncomfortable part of the conversation for some people, but it's a question that absolutely positively has to be asked. And so I'm glad to hear you talk about that. And I think you're one of the people leading to help hopefully open doors for other people. And glad to have you here. Love your work. Love everything that you're doing, man. So keep it up.
And I want to say the same thing about you. Because first of all, I mean, this guy right here, I don't know if I could give your age out. But I came up thinking he was some young dude. He is seasoned. He's a professional. He's accomplished. He's got all these different gigs. So it's a testament to the fact that, you know, you've showcased yourself to be talented, be diverse, and you got your hands in different baskets, and you're offering opportunities to people like me to come up here and spit game with you. So I really appreciate that, and I'm proud of you too, man. Well, what you're doing is awesome.
Thank you for the flowers, brother. I appreciate that. But, you know, nothing is as good, and I apprate you saying seasoned, because that makes me not sound old anymore.
Nah, you don't look like a day over. Because you asked me, and I said, man, you asked me how old you are. I was like, yo, I thought you was like young 30s, bro.
Yeah, he is off by 10 years. We can say that to the people. But you know what's important, and I appreciate you giving the flowers and everything, but it's important to pass it along and give opportunities to other people. And that's something I hope to accomplish through the show and the work I do. And if you're not doing that, if I'm not doing that, then what am I doing this for?
Absolutely, man.
Blessed to be in the position I am, but what am I doing it for? Thank you, man, for joining me on the New York Sports Rapid Rundown. This will be the first of many. You got to come back.
I hope so. I love the area, man. World Trade Center. I haven't been around here in a long time. The building is nice.
Good vibes, right?
Nice energy. We got some good chemistry.
Yeah.
So, yeah, hopefully this is the first of many, man.
Appreciate you, man. That is Tyriq Butler. Check Ty out, ESPN 98.7 FM radio. He is on there doing his thing. We'll continue to do more great things. I didn't even bother him about the fact that he's a Syracuse alum, and you know I'm from Pitt.
Go Cuse, baby. Go Orange.
He had to go and do that, and choose violence. But we're gonna let him slide because Syracuse beat Pitt twice this year, so I'm not too thrilled about that. But it's okay. Still appreciate you, brother. Thank you again for showing up, and we will see everybody next week on the New York Sports Rapid Rundown.